Hello and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, empaths. Welcome to our show. We're going to be discussing cord cutting. I think we've covered cord cutting on several other shows. Do you want to give a quick overview of what that involves?
Well, it's interesting that we're doing this show because remember when we had George Lizzo's on a while back, and I saw a little Instagram of that he was doing, and he was talking about that you don't really need to protect yourself. You emanate your power from within. You don't need shields. You don't need psychic protection. And I was waiting for him to bring up something on what about when cords? Because when we've talked about it, we've talked about cords getting attached from either positive or negative. So it's not necessarily a negative thing. But when you feel drained, when you feel exhausted, has someone latched onto your energy? And then there's the whole theory that they latch on to where your chakras are and that can have an impact on your physical health. But then there can be the positive ones that I don't want to cut the cords with my sons that are positive and loving. I don't want to cut the cords with my dear friends that are positive and loving.
Exactly. So there's this belief that anytime you have an energetic connection with someone, there's an energetic cord that connects the two of you. And some of those cords are going to be in different places on your energetic body. So if someone is a pain in your neck, you might have an energetic cord in your neck going to them. If you have a love connection with someone, you might have an energetic cord going from your heart to their heart. And this is why some people believe you pick up the phone to call your friend and she's already on the phone. It's because you were communicating that energy through your invisible to our eyes cord. So the belief is that there are good cords, like Denise just said, and there are cords that are taking energy from us. And so the belief is that you want to cut those cords, which I've always ascribed to, and I try to do cord cutting meditations frequently to kind of keep my energy clean and clear of any distractions or drains to my own personal energy. But then we received this really interesting email that I wanted to share with everyone. I did reach out to her and I got her permission to share this. She says, from listening to your podcast, I would like to share my experience with the topic you have discussed and give you my slightly different take on it. The topic is cord cutting. My mother was emotionally abusive, and in my 20s, I became seriously depressed. I began talking to a good therapist and continued for about 30 years. About 10 years ago, I was starting to end the therapy, and I decided to do a cord cutting exercise. I do not know if I had heard about cord cutting somewhere or I just psychically knew about it, but I knew I needed to do it. To back up a bit, since my late teens, I have had some significant and intense psychic experiences. I am not like you ladies with your abilities, but periodically I have some very meaningful experiences. As one example, before we adopted my son and before he was even conceived, a spirit showed him to me in a dream. I've always called this spirit Merlin, and so it was very special to learn of Deb's dear cat named Merlin. Anyway, to get back to my reason for writing, when I stopped regular therapy, I saw an opportunity to continue to grow through spiritual development, and I focused on continuing to read metaphysical books, talking to a few friends with the gift, trying to meditate, and now listening to your podcast. The day that I cut the mother-daughter cord, I was in my garden. I knew that I wanted to cut this cord, but I also knew that for me, ending the relationship was not going to feel right. Instead, I wanted to redefine our relationship in terms that I could live with. It came to me that I am comfortable redefining my mother as a crazy aunt. I've helped older people I am not related to, and maybe this is why I could redefine our relationship. In addition, my mother lives with my brother who has some issues, and I wanted to support him as well. The cord cutting consisted of my breaking the fine gold cord that I visualized as representing the sacred mother-child relationship. I then reattached to my mother with a thick, rougher-looking bronze cord. In the bronze relationship, I do not have expectations, and for the most part, I can be kind without feeling loving. She has some dementia now, and while she can still be nasty at times, I find that I care about that less and less. I also recommend a sense of humor. It is very freeing to be able to laugh. I agree with that. I have had some guilt over taking away her mother card, and sometimes I have even worried that when I leave this realm, the spirits will sit me down and tell me I had no right to break this connection. But I don't think that will happen, or at least I hope not. I have done my best. Ultimately, I am at peace with my decision, and it has been freeing and feels essential for my survival. I'm sharing this story because I imagine many people may struggle with cord cutting as I did, because they may think, I may not see that person, I may see that person soon, and how do I deal with them since I've cut the cord? Some people may need a complete break with a person. Every situation with a toxic person has to be evaluated, and people should never tolerate abuse. I am sharing this because in your work, you may meet someone for whom replacing one cord with another may help. Or maybe there's a listener who can find my story useful in their own journey. We continue to learn from each other. Isn't that a beautiful email and a wonderful idea?
It is. And it's not cutting someone out completely. It's redefining the parameters of what she wants the relationship to be in a way that honors herself and honors her mother. It's very healthy.
It is very healthy. And I liked that idea because, yes, so when you do a traditional cord cutting, what you do is you want to get yourself into a relaxed meditative state. And then you do what's called an aura or body scan. And you just imagine yourself standing outside of yourself and you're looking at your body and you're scanning it from an energetic sense. And you just ask for any cords that are attached to you to appear in your mind's eye as you're doing this visualization. And it's fascinating because I know for me, especially in the beginning, I was like, well, I'm not going to, what is this? I don't know what I'm going to see anything, but you do. You always do. And I think that's really, really interesting. And then you follow that cord in your mind's eye to see who it is attached to. And you can often tell from the cord. Some cords are ropes, some are like thick, heavy chains. Some are just beautiful energies of pink or gold. And so it's a really great thing just to go into meditation and see if you can sense, feel, or visualize your own energetic cords. Sometimes you can do a cord cutting because you just know you're corded to a person that is toxic for you. And so what you do in that situation is you visualize yourself sitting across from that person and you ask to be shown the cord that is connecting the two of you. And then you can cut that cord with a scissors, a sword, whatever symbolizes cutting to you, and you pull the remnants out of your own chakra energy system and you pull the remnants out of their own chakra energy system. And then you fill your body with golden light to seal it in so that they cannot record to you. And what I feel she's saying is, that's my mom, and I still need to help her and help my brother and be a part of this family. And so cutting that cord feels uncomfortable or disrespectful to her. And so rather than cutting that cord, she changed it. She replaced it. I like the symbolism she gave of moving from a gold cord to a bronze cord because it changed her expectations.
True.
Isn't that
Very
the
true.
key to all unhappiness in relationships is our expectations often don't meet reality?
Right. And the other part is you're not the same person that you were when your mother was having that impact on you. So, I mean, that saved my ass more than once when I would look at relationships that had taken a left turn and think, I can't be angry. I'm the one that changed. They're still the same person they've always been. And I think this is similar in the sense of she's changing the color of this cord so it's honoring to both, but it's because she's changed what her expectations and how she wants to take care of herself.
Right, exactly.
And that's incredible. I mean, for me, I'm a big fan of Archangel Michael with this one. I really am. That's always my go-to with cutting cords is to ask Archangel Michael to come in and do it. And some people, I am independent to a fault, but for some reason, when it comes to cords, I just call in the big guns and let
Yeah.
them take care of it.
No, I love to call on Archangel Michael. I call on Archangel Raphael to do the sealing.
Mm-hmm.
He's the angel of healing. And I feel like sometimes there is like a like a gap left in your energy system after you cut that cord. Because even negative cords become comfortable after a while. We assimilate to all of that.
Right. And you made a really good point of pay attention to where you feel something in your body. If you're someone that's very sensitive to how things impact your physical shell, you pick up empathically what someone else's pain might be. That's a great indicator. And if you're not seeing it, when you were speaking, I was thinking about, this is a great way to practice, how do I process the energy that comes in for me? And if you're very clairvoyant, you are going to see ropes and chains, and you're going to see colors, or you might get a sense of, or you might get a knowing of. There isn't a right or wrong in this one.
No, exactly. And some people won't see the cords, but they'll feel the cords.
Right.
And that's interesting as well. And so you have to just trust yourself and trust the way your own unique intuition works. And something we always stress to people as well is, unfortunately, this is not a one and done process. So just as cords were created that might be draining your energy, after you cut them, well, that person can recreate that cord. And they're not knowingly doing that. It's not like they're whittling away at a voodoo doll with cords on it, okay? Like, people don't know that they're doing this. It's just, whenever someone is thinking about you too much in a negative light, that's energy. Thoughts are real. Thoughts are things. Quantum physics has taught us that. And that energy has to go somewhere. And one of the places it goes is to cord with your energy.
And I think it's important that to realize you don't have to be in proximity to someone for this to happen. This can happen
They can
through.
be deceased as well.
Yeah.
You can still be corded to aspects of people who have crossed over.
Right. And I was working with someone over the internet, over a Zoom call the other day. And after I got off the call, I felt wiped out. I felt depleted. And I don't usually, that rarely, if ever, happens when I work with people. And I realized that it was a cord. It was an energetic connection. And it was almost like they had turned the tap on full and were draining my energy right out of me. And so when you feel that immediacy of a change in your energy or your mindset or your demeanor, or you speak to some certain people, and every time you speak to them, you end up feeling low or depleted or depressed, please pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's incredibly important. I like the fact that she reframed this whole notion of cord cutting that has been talked and written about for decades, and decided to just switch it up a little. And I wonder if we could do that with other toxic relationships in our life. Now, I mean, the parent-child relationship is a really, really big one. It's probably our most important relationship. It sets up the trajectory of the way we think about ourselves, the way we interact with others, the way we talk to ourselves and interact with the world. So that is an incredibly important one. But we also have important cords with siblings, with children, with spouses, with ex-partners. And we need to really look at that. Do we want to just cut that cord or redefine that cord in ways that make us feel a little bit better or more comfortable in this relationship?
And another really important point that this person brings out is she's owning that she's sending cords out, that she reattached to her mother with a different cord. And I think so often we look at it as being on the receiving end, but equally, we may be consciously or subconsciously or innocuously sending out those cords as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And there's a lot of esoteric writing on temporary cords as well. Like, do you ever just, you're walking through a place, maybe you're on vacation or something, and there's someone there that's just negatively staring at you a lot? Have you ever experienced that?
Mm-hmm.
They can temporarily cord to you. That's why doing a monthly cord cutting meditation is so important, because you could have these little hangers on of cord energy that needs to be cut and cleansed as well.
Well, didn't that happen to you in your yoga class?
Yeah, and I fell down.
Right.
Yeah.
So that power of energy, and then if it's funneled into this cord that directly attaches onto your auric field, And, the four levels of the auric field of being spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental, is there a depth difference with where that cord is attaching to the auric field?
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's four levels to your auric field, and could some just be on a cording on a spiritual level? Could some be cording on a physical
Oh,
level? I think it would depend on the intention behind the cord. Maybe.
no, that makes a lot of sense. So do you think like the parent-child cord goes through all those depths? I would
I
think,
would think so,
yeah.
because I mean, if you, and I'm not discounting being a biological parent or an adoptive parent or foster parent, but if you've physically had an umbilical cord connected to someone, then damn, you've got practice with the cording.
Yeah, that is very, very true. That is very, very true. There's a book, I think I've mentioned it on the show a couple of times. It's called The Fantasy Bond,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about dealing with toxic parents. And the whole premise of the book is that you will never heal from your toxic parent until you surrender the fantasy of how it should be, of how your parents should love you and treat you. And until you sever that fantasy, you're not going to heal. And it reminds me of what she said in the email about how she had to switch her expectation of who her mother could be for her, and just relabeling her mother to her aunt. That does take away that expectation of you should love me unconditionally. You should be here for me. You should be my greatest cheerleader. You should be kind to me. When it's just, an aunt or an uncle, that definitely does change the expectation. And so what she was doing was exactly what that famous book said, is she was dropping the fantasy of who she needed her mom to be. And that's a really hard thing. That's something that was a trend I often saw in readings, where people stuck in a perpetual temper tantrum. And I don't mean that literally. I mean, I could energetically feel them stamping their feet going, this isn't how it's supposed to be. And then they would get stuck. And it was so hard to help them just accept and surrender that, well, for right now, this is how it is. So how can you move through this and get on to the next stage of your life? Don't you see a lot of people stuck in that energetic temper tantrum?
And it comes back to, is it just this lifetime, or is it something that you've gone through over and over and over again, or there's the ancestral part, or there is the other dynamics that just intensify that. But it comes back to, of a lot of people might not understand, and she was really clear on saying some people might need a complete break with a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very personal decision. If you have to set those level of boundaries with family, with friends, with an ex, with someone, then nobody else gets a vote. You're the one that has to live with that choice, and I mean that as a positive. You get to make that decision. But socially and societally, there's often the expectation of, oh, you need to make amends, or, oh, you can't look at it that way. Well, hell yes, you can. You might have to.
You might have to. Exactly. Exactly. That is part of our healing process, and we have a right to that. Now, keep in mind too that you can also cut cords to aspects of you that are draining you. I mean,
Oh,
sometimes we're our own worst enemy, right? So if you have a bad habit or an inner critical voice that you want to disconnect from, you can cut cords to that as well. And now I'm wondering, instead of cutting that cord to an aspect of yourself, could we take our listeners' advice and just change that cord?
right. And the whole thing that, in mediumship, when you send out a beam of light from your heart chakra to the sitter or to the person in spirit, to make a stronger emotional connection when you're trying to bring through messages, or make that link with someone. is that the same thing? Can you send a cord of love? Can you open up your heart chakra and send a cord from your heart to someone that is such a level of deep and pure love without judgment? Even if you're not feeling it, is the act of sending it going to shift the energy of it? Because you'll feel better sending out that rather than fear or loss or grief or expectations.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Huh. I like the way you put that.
Well, I think that so many people are, and this sounds so judgy pie, but I it's honest, that at some point you have to make a conscious choice to say, I'm not a victim in this. These are the people in my story. This is how I've been treated. And if they are courting you in a negative way, chances are probably pretty strong that they're not going to change because it's working for them on some level.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we have to drop that expectation.
Right.
And until we do, I see people getting stuck in their life and stuck in that thought process. And so I think we need to really work on recognizing, are you in a stuck, stagnant place in this area of your life? Are you refusing to move on because this person isn't giving you everything you need or living up to the expectations you have? And you need to surrender that. And maybe that's a cord you need to cut first before you move on to these other cord cuts or changes.
And, we're highly empathic people. We're very sensitive. We don't want to feel poorly. We don't want other people around us to feel poorly because of emotional, what is the word? Emotional blackmail or negative cords or manipulation and control. We've been on the receiving end of that. We would never want to send that to someone to experience. And I wonder if part of this is dealing, as you mentioned a minute ago, rechanging the cords with yourself, not as I started this out with, George Lizzo saying you don't need to shield up to protect yourself from cords or from other people's energy, but how do you make peace with, okay, I'm this sensitive. How do I send that back? How do I send that love out without fear of being psychically or intuitively attacked?
Yeah. And I think one way you can do that is by sending some of that love and light to yourself first so that
Right.
you are loving and accepting yourself before you even attempt to send all of that good out into the world.
And you can, I still do this with people in spirit, is I will make a connection. These are people in my own life that there may have been some unrest, there may not. And when I'm speaking to them in spirit, and I'll say, I'm so sorry for any pain I brought into your life. That was never my intention to cause any pain or unrest for you, because it's true, it's honest. And the more you can own how you're feeling about someone, real genuine, if you're pissed as hell at someone because of the way they treated you, or that you didn't get the love you deserved, or you didn't get the nurturing that we should give to our children or to our friends or our spouses, fill in the blank, then you can still work on that. You can still own your part, but you can also let someone else know that they might have had a fragility that you weren't aware of.
That's exactly right. I love that. How often do you do a cord cutting meditation?
Whenever I feel slimed,
Yes.
whenever I feel with certain people that I speak with, basically every time I speak to them, which you're wondering, well, why do you still speak to them? Well, that's kind of it's not something that can be avoided at this point. It could be, but I'm not willing to do that. It's easier just to have the conversation, cut the cords, and shake my head and say, what the hell was that all about? How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I try to do it like, once a month I try to do like I don't know, an overview, where I'll really work on my chakras and do some cord cutting, and I'll smudge myself, and all of that. And that's really, really helpful to me.
So
But
you're really good about that, though. You're really good about routinely smudging and clearing and spinning, whereas I tend to wait until, something's wrong here. I better smudge the shit out of this.
no, it's not that I'm like really good at it. It's just, sometimes I feel that buildup of energy from other people on me. It's like and I just have to trust that. It took me a long time to trust that. It's like you have an extra coat or layer of energy around you. And that's when I know I got to do some crystal work, some chakra work, and some cord cutting.
Do you ever get a specific place physically that you feel it? So if someone is sending me a lot of negative energy, or is talking about me behind my back, or is stirring nasty stuff, whatever, not unkind things, I'll feel like I'll get a sharp pain in the center of my back, which the proverbial getting stabbed in the back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If it's
Yeah.
more of an emotional thing, I feel it in my heart.
Yes. Yeah. The really negative ones are right between my shoulder blades and down a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that would be center of the back. The emotional ones, like you said, the heart ones they're usually pretty positive. And then when it's someone toxic, it's either the back or my solar plexus, like they're trying to get my will or my power.
And every once in a while, I'll get it in my throat or my third eye, and I wonder. And because we teach a lot, we work with a lot of groups, we do a lot of one-on-one work with folks. You have your own juju. You don't need to take somebody else's.
Exactly. There's enough for everyone, boys and girls.
Right. So, but I do think that can be sometimes a thing where someone wants to pull your connection or and you don't have to let that happen.
No, you definitely do not. And when I do a cord cutting meditation, I don't ask to see all the cords. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but this is just my process. I ask to see the cords that are negatively affecting my energy. Because again, I do believe that we have a lot of positive cords and we need to just leave those alone, or we can intentionally send Reiki or healing energy or just beautiful colors of, like I said before, pink or green or gold through those cords. So that person gets a little boost of love from us. But I think for the most part, we should leave those alone. Now, sometimes I will do a meditation where I just ask to see the negative cords that I've created that are connected to me. And very often those are in my hips or my knees. And I know that those negative cords are holding me back from moving forward.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think it's a good idea to set a specific intention for your cord cutting meditation, not like, oh, I heard these ladies talking about cord cutting on this podcast, I'm going to try it. Because you might get a little overwhelmed, or it might be so much that your brain just gives you nothing. Sometimes when your brain gets overwhelmed, it just is like, nope, not going to do that.
One of the visuals I'll get a lot in readings, if someone has been doing a lot of trying to distance themselves from someone, is I'll physically feel like I need to pull these roots out of my heart, and it's like pulling that cord and pulling, and that's can be a shamanic or an earth energy or an energy work practice, is to physically pull the cords out, not just cut them. And then you're pulling, it's almost like pulling the root right out as well. But I think it's really important, if you're going to do that, if you're going to pull that out, pull out that energy, some people will burn it in a violet flame. Some people will disperse it to the universe. But you do need to, as you said earlier, seal that spot where you pulled it out.
You know what I'm seeing when you say that? Have you ever seen those pictures of the human body as a tree?
Yes.
And the lungs are the roots?
Yes.
That's what I'm seeing as you're talking about that.
Yeah.
I do think some cords are that deeply rooted. And that's why I always say it is not a one and done.
No.
If you're deeply corded to someone, like a parent, you might have to repeat the cord cutting meditation several times. But the main reason why we wanted to do this show was not so much to talk about cord cutting, because we have addressed that on past shows that you can look at in our archives, but to address this listener's suggestion of looking at cord cutting in a really different way, where you just amend or replace the cord with something that's more suitable to your energetic needs. So often we're worried about being there for everyone else, showing up for everyone else. Am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I pleasing everyone? And that's lovely, but not really. We need to show up for ourselves first. We need to be our own sacred best friend first. And I liked her idea because to me, that's a beautiful example of radical self-care.
It is.
Your power.
And it may be exactly what she said. It's not a relationship that you want to end. You just want to change the energy exchange between the two of you.
Right.
And
exactly.
And that's important. It's so similar when I mentioned there's someone that drains me. That is someone that has been in my life a very long time, and it's not, there needs to be a connection there. So it's not toxic to the point where I'm in danger or anything like that. And we don't need to go into deep detail. You're all intelligent people and know if it's a situation that needs more than just a cord cutting.
Right, exactly. Now, before we wrap up, can I give some of my other metaphysical tips that have helped me with these toxic people?
That'd be fantastic.
Okay, so I think I've talked before about how you can write the person's full name on a piece of paper and then fold it at least twice, folding each time away from you. So you're pushing their energy away from your own, and put it in a bottle of water or a glass container of water, whatever Tupperware container you'd like, and put that in the freezer. And that will effectively freeze their energy from affecting yours. Something else I've done is I'll take a little bowl, a little container with a lid, and I write the person's full name, and I write, by sugar and spice, you are always kind and nice to me. And I put that in the bottom of the bowl, and I fill it with sugar and cinnamon. And then I seal it. And sometimes I'll wrap it in like a black ribbon or a red ribbon to just like lock in that energy. And I just tuck it away where it won't be disturbed. Another thing you can do is get a cactus plant and you bury it on the furthest perimeter of the front of your house. So usually in front of your mailbox. And that, because you never want to have a cactus plant in your home. That's not good feng shui. For something, if you believed in all of that, which I tend to, the cactus plant's needles keeps negative energy out at bay. So you want to do that. And some people recommend writing their name on a piece of paper and burying it underneath that cactus plant. So it's going to protect their energy from affecting your home. So those are just my little metaphysical tips for dealing with toxic people. Not that I have experience with that or anything. I have one more.
Okay.
Sorry. You can get a box that's the inside is mirrored. So you can either get a craft box or say a jewelry box that you hold a necklace or bracelet in, and just, glue little mirrors from a craft store in there. Or there's actually a lot of makeup lipstick brands where you open up the lipstick case and it's mirrored already, which is great. But you want to get a box that has mirrors on the inside of it, at least one. And then you write that person's full name and put it in the box. And that mirror will deflect any negative energy they're sending to you right back to the source.
Okay. This is random, but whatever happened with the little coffins that you were going to use when you were talking about the craft boxes, I thought, I wonder what they did with the coffins.
Okay, so for New Year's Eve, my girls and I have all these rituals. We do our bowl burning ceremony. We do our flying wish papers. We start our vision boards. And I thought, this year, instead of doing a bowl burning ceremony, it'd be really neat if I ordered on Amazon these little coffins. They're just, unfinished wood, tiny, tiny coffins. And I thought it'd be fun if we wrote down everything we just want to bury. Like, remember that famous story from the 90s called Kant's Burial? And the teacher had all the students write down everything they felt they couldn't do. like I can't read well or I can't do math. And she had them all bury it, like saying, that's dead, that's gone, that's not who you are anymore. You can read, you can do math. So I thought it would be kind of that type of a ritual. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We could paint them or write stuff on the coffins that we were really ready to let go of. So the Amazon box arrives. Denise, these things were like 2 feet by 3 feet. They were so obnoxiously big. And I had all my Christmas decorations up, and then sitting on the table are these like giant craft coffin boxes. And my kids were like, Mom, what now? And I'm like, all right, here's my idea, but it's fine. It's creepy. It's weird. I'll get smaller boxes. So for right now, the coffin boxes have been donated, and I'm going to try to recreate it when I find tiny coffins. I like the idea. It just did not work out.
Okay. It was just, I know that we had that.
I didn't even like dig holes this big.
But it's good that they found a home, that they were donated.
Can you imagine what the people at Goodwill thought when they opened up that?
Oh my goodness. Because I remember we had this conversation, and I just thought there were probably some listeners that wonder what they ever did with those coffins.
I really thought I thought it was like 2 inches by 3 inches. I didn't read the foot mark correctly.
That's a big coffin.
It's a big coffin. Yeah. So we're just gonna do a big old redo on that.
Yes. And I'm sure that there's in your new life and your new experience, this will be perfect.
It was, it'll work out just fine. And so we just did our bowl burning. And if anyone's like flying wish papers, you can buy them online. You can buy them in a lot of metaphysical stores. Have you ever worked with flying wish papers?
No.
Well, it's so fun. So we do them at New Year's Eve, and then we do them on birthdays. So after you do cakes, the birthday girl gets to do a flying wish paper. You write down your wish for the year, and you roll it up into a perfect little cone shape towards you to pull that energy towards you. You put it on this little cardboard paper that they provide, and then you light it on fire. And it goes up into the air, and it just disintegrates into tiny little ashes.
Oh.
Your mom magically cleans later on. And so what we do is we go around the table, we all light our flying wish papers, and we say whomever's rises the fastest, their wish will come true first.
Oh.
And it tends to be accurate. Yeah. So just something to consider.
Well, and maybe that's something we could do with cords. When we cut these cords, just picture them shooting out into the ethers, into space.
Just into tiny little ashes. And Samantha will come with her magical vacuum and vacuum them all up. Well, we hope you guys have enjoyed this, and we thank our listener so much. It's always exciting when we can learn new ideas and concepts from listeners because, gosh, Denise, we've read so many books on cord cutting. The first time I ever read about it is in one of Shirley MacLaine's first books from like the 80s. Mm-hmm. She has a beautiful guided meditation in her book about going into a garden and walking onto a stage and seeing the person you need to cut cords from. And that's the first time I encountered it. I think Denise Lynn writes beautifully about cord cutting too. She has a whole book on it.
Yes, she does.
So we've read and studied and practiced so much about cord cutting throughout both our lives. And this is a brand new concept to us. And I just absolutely love that. It reminds me that we are all in this together. And why we do this show is to continue fostering this community. So thank you guys so much. If you have an example or a story or something you want to teach us, you can always email us enlightenedempaths@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our offerings at our websites, thegratefulmessenger.com and samanthafay.com. Have a great week, everyone. Cut those cords. And remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.